Alrighty then. Felt like starting this off with something different. This is SRxun, Servant-in-Chief of the Essence International Community of Companies. Just thought I'd remind everyone in case you haven't got the memo. For this share, there are so many ways that I can title this. The tail end. Catch it by the tail. T-A-L-E. Tattle tail. T-A-I-L. And so on and so on and so forth. If you followed along and digested and treated yourself with the same treatment today, then you may be familiar with where the main topic comes from. Specifically, it's actually coming from chapter 4, verses 3 to 5. This is now right after God has called Moses and told him, hey, this is what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you go and lead the way to get my people out. And I guess to alleviate some of the doubts that Moses had, understandably, he says, okay, let me give you a demonstration of my power. Here specifically, he tells Moses, throw down the rod that's in his hand. He turns to a serpent. Now, naturally, this activates the fight or flight response. If we're going to get specific, happening in the sympathetic nervous system. What was interesting there when I thought about that was that it's actually named the quote-unquote nervous system. Side note, I don't know why I'm talking into this speaker. I'm actually doing the air quotes like you can see, but I just told him myself, so there's the visual for you. In any case, though, I don't think it's wrong or at all, because this is a natural response. Now, Moses, he's a flighter. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what? I would be apprehensive too, seeing a snake. Who knows what type of snake it was? For me, regardless of whatever type of snake, I'm personally not going to try to fight the snake. I'm going to do like Moses and give this thing some room. However, God says, hey, come back here, Moses. Because it's my belief based on this, that he intends for us to see these threats from his heavenly perspective. The reason this translates to me personally is the snake. I equate this to being the serpent, the fallen one. Everything that is negative, everything evil, everything dark, I correlate with the serpent. And so anything negative that I'm experiencing, my natural reaction is to get away from it. It's a threat to my happiness. It's a threat to my mental, physical, emotional well-being. And I don't want to be around any type of negative energies. But I believe God is saying, stop. You can't run away from it because it's still going to be there. But instead of attacking it, quote unquote, head on, you don't grab a snake by the head, basically. That's not wise, for better lack of words. But he says, look at it from a different perspective. Grab it by the tail. Grab it by the tail I'm just talking, I guess this would be the third person, talking to myself out loud. Grab it by the tail and see that this thing is no longer a threat, whether real or perceived. And I guess perception is the basis for reality, right? I just had to, marinate in that for a minute. Because the question arises is, why? Why all of this? It didn't have to be this way. God could have never allowed sin in the world. He could have never had his people in bondage, so on and so forth. And there are times where I have questioned the reason for it all. And I use that in the past tense because I believe God has answered me. And not only answer me, but he continues to reveal that the answer that I carry and have is according to his word. As verse 5 says, this is for the purpose of belief. The powerful signs and wonders that he is choosing to work through us are for the purposes of belief. I took that a step farther. So far that I brought it here and now in today's dispensation, where the power of belief, as God says in scripture, portions of the scripture like Acts 16-31 and Romans 10 verses 9-10, to name a couple, the power of belief leading unto salvation. And ultimately, I'm realizing that the purpose for everything, God allows these things, and there's even a fallen one here allowed to roam around. There's darkness here, all these things allowed to roam around simply for the purposes of being, examples to proclaim his glory. That we'll see these things, and depending on what side of the serpent you're on, you actually see these wondrous works in different ways. The Egyptians were on, to stay with the text here, the main idea, the Egyptians were on the fang side of the serpent. So, their firstborns were killed, and the hail was killing their flocks and destroying their property, and the bloody water they were unable to drink, and the frogs and the locusts were in their area because his people were on the tail end of the serpent, where in Goshen none of these things were happening. They were untouched by the fangs or the threat of these signs and wonders. So in that, God is saying, again, change your perspective. And Lord, how do I do that? Is the question I ask. And he answers by saying, continue feasting upon me. Eat of me, eat my flesh. I am my word. And you will begin to see things from the tail end. And then those things that are a threat for those on the wrong side become a staff to you. And this meant something to me because when David talks about God being the rod and staff, I put it simplistically as the rod of correction, the staff of instruction. So the very same things that I felt were threats, God says, man, if you let me show you something, I'll let you see that those things that you feared, I will make out to be your flight path. Not only to soar on eagle's wings to the heavenly destination, but going back to this whole context of scripture, it was a flight from Egypt. So ultimately, you don't run from the threat. You take the proper handle upon it in order to elevate to a higher plane, higher level. How great is our God? Oh, blessed be his name. Caption this. Sir.